Devine, I'm going to play a soundbite flashback to President Biden on the campaign trail, and there's no better person to fact-check him than our resident hunter expert. That would be Miranda. Let's roll the tape.
I didn't write it, but I could have. Look, I think that's every single solitary, serious investigator, including your network and others, have looked at this, have said there's absolutely zero basis to the accusation that I acted any way inappropriately or that my son did. There's not been a scintilla of evidence pointing out that anything is wrong.
So,
These guys are amazing.
So you think that everything that happened was kosher?
You know there's not one single bit of evidence, not one little tiny bit, to suggest anything done was wrong.
Thou doth protest too much. Miranda, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, look, that's just another extraordinary mistruth from President Biden there, and he did that throughout the campaign. I mean, he pretended that he knew nothing about his son Hunter's overseas business dealings, and there is plenty of evidence on the laptop in Tony Bobulinski's material and the material that Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson collected for their Senate investigation and are currently presenting to Congress, and I think they're going to be doing that on a regular basis to show links between Hunter Biden and Communist China. And there is also evidence that Joe Biden financially benefited from Hunter Biden's grift and his brother Jim Biden's grift with these countries, which are crucial to America's national security interests. And a lack of curiosity from most of the media is repellent and really corrupt. But I think the dam is about to burst. We have Hunter Biden is looking at indictments coming out of that grand jury in Delaware, and you see the New York Times and I believe the Washington Post are now sniffing around. They've admitted the laptop is real, and they realize that this is a bombshell story.
And the Wall Street Journal, Emily, reporting that this probe is advancing. They said that the grand jury that was mentioned by Miranda in Delaware heard testimony from witnesses.
That's right, as well as their own investigation with additional witnesses. It's important to state that what we don't know is how close they are to finishing. So we know it is progressing. We do not know if it's anywhere near the end or conclusion of the investigation. We do not know whether it will result in an indictment. What we do know is they are specifically looking into his tax consequences, his tax liability, criminal and civil, how he reclassified or classified his finances, and also how he received money. Additionally, they are looking into his lobbying efforts and whether those comported with FARA, our federal act here that regulates whether you're a lobbyist, and sort of some complications in there, just dotting the I's here. Number one, we know that his well-documented drug and alcohol addiction and his complicated history has been sort of proffered as a potential defense for anything that might come forth. Secondly, he always seemed to insulate himself and use third parties in the lobbying realm, so there might be some type of perceived or actual insulation there. But the bottom line is there's certainly not a scintilla of evidence. There's certainly not nothing. In fact, there's so much I can't get all into it in the 20 seconds I have left. So in stark contrast to what the president's saying, in stark contrast to what Hunter Biden has said, which is he's confident everything will be above board and there's nothing to see here, we actually have heard quite the opposite coming out. And quick final point, the $1 million he has paid, we don't know what the entire liability was, and that is true and unrelated from any actual liability. So whether I repay the government doesn't absolve me of my actual being on the hook for whether there was fraud or criminal element, and we don't know if that suffices or satiates the entire liability. An actual final point, he's also being investigated for that same shadiness with China. It's not just Ukraine. There's a whole lot here.
So let's just get really basic right now, because this comes down to judgment by the president and what he knew and what he didn't know with regard to his son. So like you say, and by the way, in dire straits that Hunter Biden would be in right now, how did he get $1 million loan to pay off the debt of taxes?
His artwork, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
The collateral of his name?
I think that we should know.
Yeah.
I think that we should know, because there are a lot of people in America right now that can't get a loan. And I'm not talking $1 million.
Because their name isn't Biden.
I think that we should know. And is he still capitalizing off of his name, which is something that he said openly after some pressing in a 60 Minutes interview not long ago. So I think all of it just speaks to the issue of how vulnerable the president could be made, depending on what his even current actions are, Hunter Biden, right now. So we need to know the flow of the money. My dad used to always say, watch the money, see the flow of the money. And that tells you a lot. I want to know the flow of the current money. And was it art sales that allowed him to get $1 million loan? As much money as he was making off the art sales, why did he need $1 million loan? Did he pay taxes on what he was making? I mean, I have a lot of questions. And I'm sure investigators, as you said, we don't know where they are in all this.
And I hope there are journalists, Vivek, who will ask those questions. I mean, 259 days, ABC 0 mentioned, CBS 0, NBC 0. I mean, this is appalling.
Journalists other than Fox.
Other than Fox, yes.
Yeah. Well, look, mark my words, I predict this will not result in an indictment, and I don't think it's because the facts don't support it. I think it is because the managerial class in this country will not allow it. That is a managerial class that spans both the public sector and the private sector. Because you'll remember, in 2020, this issue was unspeakable because most people knew that it had the potential to affect the outcome of a presidential election. And that was a bridge too far for them. This is the 2024 presidential election. That's the next concern. And the managerial class that spans the alphabet soup of the public sector, from DOJ to FBI, to the alphabet soup of the private sector, from FB to MSFT to AMZN to GOOG, will not allow it. And I think that's why it won't result in an indictment. And it's a shame we won't get the answers, Harris, that you said you wanted to see.
Well, we may get some answers from Darrell Issa. He sent preservation notices to Facebook, Twitter, the White House. They're going to look into the collusion ahead of the 2020 election on this story and burying it. Coming up, spring break chaos in Florida, where some college kids are bringing guns to the party. A lot of guns. Wow, that's next.